GMing's tough these days, you see. Players want you to sing, act, dance, run the numbers, roll their dice, and plan out a whole world for them. They want you to be a one-man army, a living, veritable Matthew Mercer. But it don't have to be this way. I got the solution for you. In the business, we call it a friend. If you don't know, it was a popular toy in the early 2010s among people who went outside. I know it's in short supply these days, but a friend can double your GMing efficiency. You hear that, folks? Double! I have a limited time offer for you all. If you join my Discord server right now, you can purchase your very own friend, and it only costs you a boost. What do you say? Okay, so what I'm talking about is a Co-DM. People can mean two different things when they say Co-DM. Often, people say Co-DM to mean swapping who DMs their friend circle's games, like alternating DMs for different storylines. But that's actually just having two solo DMs. I'm talking about real Co-DMing, having more than one dungeon master running a game at the same time. Juggling more than one dungeon master does introduce some growing pains, which I'll talk about later, but overall it's a huge benefit. There are three problems that Co-DMing solves. First, a challenge for solo DMs is that you often forget a lot during a session. A common example of forgetting details is combat descriptions. I sometimes forget a flavor a monster's attack because I'm still thinking of the monster's tactics or I'm moving the tokens around. And, even if I don't forget, there are often a lot of things in the battlefield which I have to manage and can slow down the flow of the game. The advantage of a Co-DM is that one of us can focus on the tactics of the enemies while the other handles elements like music and flavor. If there's an even more involved combat with multiple factions or sides, such as a massive war zone, we can each manage one cluster of enemies. The same principle applies in RP scenarios. During RP, DMs have to dedicate their brainpower to multiple concerns: driving the plot forward, acting out the NPC accurately, atmospheric elements like music or scene description, and making the scene engaging in general. In my experience as a solo DM, I'm very focused on acting out the NPC accurately and making the scene as entertaining as possible, which sacrifices the session's pacing and immersion. With a Co-DM, they can signal for me to get back on track with a text message or hand sign. That really alleviates the mental load of multitasking so many things. Also, sometimes I forget crucial plot details and I need a reminder that an NPC had a point besides a funny accent. Ultimately, with a second DM, you get double the brainpower to handle all the tasks you need to do. Even if you're a god who remembers all these details, you often have to slow down the flow and pacing of the game. "Hey guys, I need to pull up my notes" is an unfortunately classic statement, but with another DM, you can keep the game running smoothly. Another huge benefit of having a Co-DM is the ability to shit out way more content. A single DM's brain can only produce so many ideas in a week. Now that you have two of them, you probably have double the amount of ideas. Once you have the ideas put together, you and your Co-DM can springboard off each other and really refine the concepts you have. Oftentimes, DMs have very few people that both understand their world and have incentive to help refine their concepts. I think every DM has blabbed about random liches, dragons, or world-ending wars to a friend who has no stake in the game. And obviously, they just don't really care, even though you do. That's your world-ending war. But if you have a Co-DM, they will care since it's their game too. I can't emphasize this enough. Having another pair of eyes that really understand your work and can give you feedback will really improve the polish and quality of your game. This is crucial. Having another pair of eyes that really understands your work and gives feedback will improve the polish and quality of your game. Every writer tells you their first draft is always garbage and that revising and getting feedback is vital. It's the same for D&D. When game time comes, you really want to make sure there are no glaring errors or janky mechanics. A Co-DM can really help you notice and fix those things. The last major point is that you can counterbalance each other's flaws and highlight each other's strengths. Here are my strengths and weaknesses evaluated on a radial chart. My strengths are in world building, narrative, and roleplay. But the immersive stuff, character art, the music, the maps, the tokens, all those are not my forte. Contrary to what people think, and it's probably my fault people think this, I'm also not the best at mechanics. I'm pretty meh. This is my Co-DM's chart that he personally made. He sets a good atmosphere, he's a mechanics guy at the table, and has a good idea of how the narrative will go. Obviously, he has his own flaws that I make up for. Our combined chart looks something like this. That's pretty amazing. I'm essentially min-maxing without the minimization. Max-maxing. We're maxed the fuck out. It's the reason why people collaborate in any field. Some people have skill sets you don't. Making a great film requires a host of people with varied skill sets, such as acting, directing, writing, making sets, costume crew, all sorts of things. Making an incredible campaign can require many skill sets, and nobody has every skill. Brennan Lee Mulligan has a whole team of people in the background helping make the game run as smooth as possible. While these aren't exactly co-DMs, a co-DM can serve a similar role to facilitate the game. If you're watching this video, you've definitely used art from the internet to help supplement your story. You obviously didn't draw that, and that's okay, but it's good to recognize that your campaign is never just all you. Having another person help you craft your campaign isn't all that different. There's also some more gimmicky shit you can do with multiple GMs that you can't do as a solo, and we all love gimmicks. You could split the party and have those scenes happen simultaneously. There's a lot of creative possibilities with this, and it can get pretty wild, especially during combat. You could theoretically have two separate simultaneous combats that affect one another like a shadow dimension. You could have multiple NPCs in a conversation with themselves or the party. You can do this with a solo DM, but it's more convincing when there's literally two different voices. In a virtual tabletop like Roll20, I've often ran in-character roleplay in a text chat with the party, while the other party members were using the voice chat to engage with the other DM. If one of the DMs has to miss a session, one of you could be a solo DM as well, making for more consistent sessions. So at this point, maybe you do want to try co-DMing. Awesome. Keep in mind it's not a fix for all issues, but it can be a great choice for some campaigns. Now that I've hyped you all up, let's discuss potential issues you might run into while you're co-DMing. Step 1, you have to get a co-DM. You should tolerate this person for long periods of time, and they should usually be around the time you want to host your games. These are your friends, hopefully. Anyways, when picking a co-DM, consider their philosophy on RPGs. Here are some foundational questions to get you two started. Number 1, do we stick to the letter of the rules as closely as possible? Number 2, are we making a game or are we making a story? Number 3, what is the perfect session for you? Number 4, what is the tone of our campaign? And number 5, what system are we using? Discuss, compromise, and come to an agreement before your first session. If you cannot come to a consensus, that person is not a good fit to be a co-DM. Remember, though, that your ruling philosophy can change depending on the campaign you're running. Just because you have a different philosophy when running with your co-DM does not mean your solo games need to share that philosophy. After you two have reached consensus, create a shared vision for your campaign. What kind of campaign do you two want? There's a bunch of videos out there that are about making a campaign both in terms of flavor and mechanics. They're all over the internet. Once you have a shared philosophy and vision, decide how you'll share notes, what platform you're going to play on, such as Roll20, and airtime. Airtime is how you guys determine who's talking during the session. By default, me and my co-DM agreed that I mainly talk when giving descriptions or dialogue for most scenes. However, there are very important characters or scenes that my co-DM takes over for. When we roll initiative, my co-DM usually runs the NPCs in terms of strategy, while I run background elements such as music or flavor. However, if we want the other GM to come in, we cue each other in either through text messages or verbally saying each other's names. Make general guidelines for who's talking and develop a simple system to cue each other in. If you're playing online, have a private channel. Or if you're in real life, send text or hand signs. There's a lot more to potentially discuss, but communicate that with your co-DM. Communicate, communicate, communicate. Talk about anything you think could be a problem way before your session 0. This is like session -1. So after all that, here's the big issue you'll run into. You will disagree on some ruling or some idea or suggestion. You will disagree. It doesn't matter. It's going to happen when multiple humans exist in the same room. I hope your co-DM isn't a bot. These arguments can get pretty heated if you let them get out of hand. Compromise, communicate, and be honest. If the disagreement happens in a session, leave it for later and just roll with what's happening. Co-DMs are equals and the objective should be to have a great time. Co-DMs can lose sight of that because they get fixated on something that doesn't matter. Don't forget you two are just trying to make the best game possible. That's all, folks. Like if you enjoyed, comment out what you think, I'm honestly curious, and subscribe for more. If you want to financially support me, I also have a YouTube memberships page. I'm also changing my video release schedule to once every 2 weeks for my mental health and to explore more hobbies.